I lost everything and I became homeless literally overnight. I went from being a multimillionaire, having multiple homes, multiple businesses, and it all just disappeared. So here's the magic. Here's the secret. Your emotional brain activates either your creative brain to make you the best that you can be, solving all the problems, setting the right goals, not going after the wrong things, meeting the right people, doing the right things, saying the right things, or it's activating this reactive response through your feelings. And when you feel good, it's activating your creative brain. And when you're feeling bad, when you're feeling fear, that is a sign that you are using your survival brain. And what are most people doing? They're feeling stressed, frustrated, afraid, worried, anxious, and they're trying to run their life from that place.
Hey guys, it is Alison. I am the host of your show, Alison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey guys, how are you today? It is Alison from Alison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. I have Liam Naden as my next guest. And I'm just going to read his bio to get right to it so we can get him here to share all of his wealth of wisdom. He is a you have to let yourself off the hook speaker, teacher, writer, and researcher. Liam Naden helps you create true success in your life by understanding how to use your brain in just the right way, overcoming your problems, achieving your goals, and ending frustrations. I'm dying to hear this because this is good for me. He is the host of Let Yourself Off the Hook podcast and coaching program, explaining how to achieve success without the struggle. Liam is also an experienced marriage and relationships coach, host of Growing in Love for Life podcast, author of 2 books, and the 20-volume Growing in Love for Life series of short books on marriage. He is also a creator of 4 relationship coaching programs, originally from New Zealand. Liam has recently completed an 8-year adventure sailing through 15 countries in Europe in his own yacht. What an interesting guest, right? He says he shares his own personal experiences of trying everything to achieve success. I'm going to let him explain what happened next, all the ways that he tried and didn't succeed and then was able to succeed. Without any further ado, I am going to say here that Liam actually, I guess I'm going to say it, then he ended up losing everything and he became homeless in his mid-40s. And in rebuilding his life, he did it in a much better way than before. So we're going to let him explain that to us. And without any further ado, here he is. Hey guys, how are you today? It is Alison from Alison Answers. I just told you all about Liam in the bio. I just found out a lot of extra fun stuff that we're going to talk to him about. This guy's a fascinating dude. So I'm like excited, and I know I get excited about most things, but this right here, I'm dying to know about his lifestyle. Wait till you hear his lifestyle. It's going to make you jealous, and we're all going to move or not. Well, we'll see. But anyhow, so Liam, I just want to thank you so much for being here. I would love to, I introduced you previously before you came on about all the programs you have and your keys to success and about basically rewiring the brain. I mean, I'm all about that. So I would just love to hear a little bit of your story, how you ended up becoming successful, losing your success, and then gaining it back again. I would just love to hear about that, just to introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Alison. And can I also say thank you very much for having me on your show. It's a real honor to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you and your listeners as well.
Awesome.
But anyway, essentially, I've been one of those people, probably like you, or certainly many of your listeners, where most of my life I've been driven by this, I want to be the best. I want to have a great life. I want to be successful and happy. And, I don't want to just to have an ordinary life. So even from a young child, I was always quite driven to be the best at whatever I was doing. And I really was quite consumed with this question, how can I be the best that I can be? How can I be successful? And I went down a whole lot of different paths trying to find the answer to that question. The first one was religion. I was brought up in a Christian household, religious household. And when I asked this question, my teachers and my parents and everybody said, well, if you want whatever you want, you just pray. You just ask God for what you want and you'll get it. And I thought, well, that sounds fair enough. So I really tried that. And I remember when I was fairly young, I think I was about 9 or 10, there was something I wanted. I decided I'm going to test God on this one, and I'm going to go to church every morning, and this was in the winter time, every morning for a month, and I'm going to pray and ask for this one thing. So I went to, it was a Catholic family I was a member of, and went to Mass at 6:30 every morning for a month, and I said to God, God, make me win this competition at school. And I thought, well, if I wanted to test this out, well, I didn't win the competition. So I thought, this doesn't really work, this idea of just asking for what you want and you getting it. And I looked at my parents and my teachers and the religious people, and I thought, they're not really any more happy and successful, doesn't seem to me, than anyone else. So maybe not, the answer isn't here. So then I thought, well, somebody said to me, if you want to be successful in life, you need to get an education, become an expert, get some letters after your name, and then you'll get a really good job and you'll make lots of money and you'll be happy. So I did that, and I went to university for 7 years full time, and I got all these letters after my name, studying music actually. And I became, I knew a lot about this area of music, and I was surrounded by people who also knew a lot about music, but I noticed they weren't really any happier or more successful than anyone else either. So I thought, I don't think the answer's here. And then a wise old uncle said to me, if you want to be really successful, you need your own business. That's how you do it. Make lots of money, work for yourself, have a freedom, that will bring. That's the way to be happy and successful. So I went straight out and I set up, not knowing anything about business, having been a musician, if you like, classical musician. And I went out and I set up the first of what was 18 different businesses that I've had in my life as a real entrepreneur. And anyway, a lot of these businesses, and certainly the first one, was really successful. And I made lots of money, and I had a lifestyle, I had a beautiful home, and I was traveling and doing lots of great things. But what I noticed was I never really felt totally successful. And I always had this feeling there's something more. I'm missing out on something. I don't have that real inner feeling that I'm really in control of my life and that I am being the best that I can be. There's something more that I've got to keep striving. I've got to keep struggling. I've got to keep setting more goals. I've got to push harder, do more, be more motivated. And of course, with all of that came a lot of stress, a lot of problems. And I was led to believe, and I'm sure I heard it and read it in books,
yes,
problems and stress, that's a natural part of success. You have to learn to live with problems. You have to learn to overcome challenges. And I thought, okay, well, that's just the way life is. If I'm in this success state with, being a multimillionaire and having all these great things, I'm always going to have problems. I'm always going to have stress, and I'm always going to have to keep working towards that next level and never really feeling like I've actually got anywhere. There's, moments of times of, I'm
you're
doing
singing
well.
my song.
On every entrepreneur's song, isn't it?
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm loving what you're saying. So you were saying,
but this is the entrepreneur's curse, isn't it? Of always needing and wanting more and striving for more. And of course, at the same time, I went way down the whole rabbit hole of business studies, personal development, peak performance, motivation, all of those areas. And I went to seminars and did courses, and I read books on everything you could think of, from goal setting to ways to change your beliefs and rewire your subconscious mind and do all these different things to become more successful. Tried lots of different techniques. And I was the guy who didn't just go to the seminar and listen to what the man or woman said to do. I did it. And I really did it. And I remember going to a seminar and the speaker said, no, I'm giving you this. In those days, it was a tape recording. And what you need to do is you need to listen to this every day for a month. I went away and I listened to it 3 times a day for about 6 months. Because in every technique, every time I went to one of these courses or read one of these books, and they said, this is the way you'll finally achieve success, I thought, I'm going to really try this. I'm not just going to read it and give it a bit of a go, because this might be the answer. So I'm really going to work it. I'm going to do this over and over and really try and understand this technique or this method or whatever of success. So I did lots of things, and I also did lots of things in the areas of spirituality as well. I learned meditation and did the law of attraction courses on your thoughts, and and I had goals lists everywhere and different ways of moving your body and doing all sorts of things. So here I was an expert on success. I could quote you any book or any guru on success about what to do to be successful. And I was doing pretty well. I had, as I said, a beautiful home. I had a really nice lifestyle, plus all the stress and the frustration and the problems. But I had on the outside, I thought I was on the right track. But then something happened, and I was in my mid-40s, that wasn't on any goals list, and it wasn't on any successful person's list of achievements. And it came to me completely out of the blue, and that was I lost everything, and I became homeless literally overnight. I went from being a multimillionaire, having multiple homes, multiple businesses, and it all just disappeared. And I had to move back in with my elderly mother and sleep on the sofa in the living room of her small apartment. That's where I ended up. I had nothing. And she was in a town that I hardly knew. So I didn't know anybody. I had no friends. I had certainly no income. I had just had a few clothes. So here I was in my mid-40s, and 2 questions kept coming to me as I lay on the sofa trying to get to sleep at night, with worrying about all the people who were chasing after me for money, wanting to bankrupt me, and all of these different things and all these problems I had. But 2 questions kept coming up. The first one was, why has this happened to me? Because I'm an expert on success. I know about having the right thoughts, the right beliefs, how to attract the right things into your life. I've done all of these courses and all these books, and I know all this stuff. This was not on my list. And so why has this happened to me if all of the techniques that I've used to be successful suddenly aren't working? And the second question I asked myself was, what do I do now? What do I do to get out of this? Everything I know about creating success hasn't worked. I don't know what to do. And the interesting thing was, it was those 2 questions that really set me on a completely different path. And I didn't realize it at the time, but they were fundamental, because what happened after that was pretty amazing. Because I rebuilt my life, you get out of it eventually, and things got better. And I started to set up new businesses again, and I was making money again. And I was starting to do things that were like quite amazing things. Like I ended up buying a yacht and sailing around Europe for 8 years. I lived in a motorhome in New Zealand, my home country, for 18 months, traveling around. I attracted a new partner, had a very different and far better relationship to one that I'd ever had before. And my, lack of success in relationships was one of my problems that really led to, one of the things that tripped me up. So my life was going in a much better way, but there was a fundamental difference between the success I'd had earlier and the success I was now experiencing and starting to get in a bigger way. And I guess the way, without sounding too sort of woo-woo, what really struck me was,
yeah.
Well, what really struck me was, before I'd been chasing after success. I'd always been pushing harder. What's the next thing? What's the next goal? How do I get some more information? What do I need to learn? What more do I need to find out and do to get to that next level? So I was really pushing hard all the time to make things happen. So I was chasing after success. But this time around, it felt like success, in a weird way, was actually coming after me, because instead of me chasing after stuff, things were coming into my life that were really unexpected but great things. So I remember being in a shop once. I think you call them a store over there. But I was in a store and somebody walked in and I hadn't seen this person for 25 years. And he recognized me and said, "Hey, Liam, hey, fancy meeting you. You're really good at this type of business. And there's an opportunity come up next to, it was a retail. I used to be in retail. There's a retail shop coming up next to where I am in this other suburb. Why don't you set up a business there?" Well, I had no money. I was still living with my mother. I had nothing. But he had this idea, and all of these things happened. And before I knew it, I'd set up this new business with no money, and that's what I was finding all the way along. I mean, I was certainly working hard and doing things and being motivated, but things were working in a much better and a much easier way, a much more flowing way. And I remember waking up one day and thinking, what's happening to me? Because apart from all of this, I'm really starting to do things that I really enjoy, and I'm making the money and I've got the freedom and all those sorts of things. But actually, where are the problems? Where's the stress? I don't really have any. I'm working hard, but I look forward to the days when I wake up rather than dreading opening my email like I used to. I really feel good when I go to bed at night and things are going well. And if I'm really honest, I can't say I've really actually got any stress or problems. Things are just working out really well. So that's when I decided I need to figure out what I'm doing differently, because I want to make sure I keep doing it. I don't want to, it's going so well, I don't want to sabotage it. And that led me down a track of doing a lot of research and thinking and really drawing together not only everything that I'd learned before, but some new ideas, some new information to realize there was something fundamental I'd missed about the way we really create success in our life, the way we really get the results we do. Because everybody would agree, I'm sure, that most of what happens in your life that's really significant is not actually the result of your efforts. It's like something unexpected happens. So, you walk into a room one day and you look at somebody and you go, I think I'm going to marry that person. No, I don't know why. I don't know where they came from. I didn't put them on a goals list that tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'm going to meet this person and this is what they're going to look like and this is what they're going to be like. And I'm going to marry them. We're going to have children and build a life together. And it's the same with, business opportunities or career or all of the most significant things. If you really think about it, there's a strong element of what appears to be luck and coincidence. And things happen in your life that you might call, as I say, luck and coincidence or little miracles, if you like. And I thought, this is what's happening to me all the time. And there's something else beyond my own thinking that's at work here. And that's when I went to work on, as I say, drawing all the bringing everything together and realizing what really creates the results that we get in our life. And it's all to do with this thing.
Yes. Yes. I have so many questions, but I didn't want to interrupt you. Can I ask you a few?
Absolutely.
Because I love the way you're presenting this whole story. It's just fascinating. And I'm okay. So what I want to know is when you lost everything, and you said it was just like overnight. I can hear if I zoom out. I mean, you can see, like, to me, it feels divine, like the whole thing, like whatever. And like all of that work that you had done, all of the, developing of yourself, like it wasn't lost. It was just like revamped. It sounds like it was like, but what I'm curious about is just because I think other people are going to be curious, how did you lose everything overnight like that? How did that happen? Just bam?
Well, the short story, without getting sued, is that it was really the culmination of a whole lot of wrong decisions in my life, both personal and business-wise. And, when you're an entrepreneur and when you're stressed and struggling, I used to do this all the time, and many of the people that I help, they're in this situation. You make bad decisions and you think, why did I do that? And you literally sometimes know when you're making the wrong decision that you're making the wrong decision, but you still make it. So you might employ the wrong person in your business and you say, it's that gut feeling. There's something not this. I'm making the wrong decision here. But then you justify it and you say, well, they're the best person I could find for the job, or, there's 70% there. Well, I'll make it work. I'll train them up. It'll be fine. We say this about our marriage and our relationships sometimes, very often. I do, as in the introduction, you might have mentioned, I do a lot of marriage and relationship work. And this is really one of the keys that got me onto realizing the brain is the fundamental driver of everything in our life, was that so many people were doing the wrong things and getting into the wrong relationships. I mean, I did that myself. And you even know you're getting into the wrong relationship, but you justify it to yourself and say, well, everybody knows that, that relationships are hard work and that you have to work on them, and no relationship's perfect. And you can make any relationship work. So we justify all these things. And so in answer to your question, all of these bad decisions that I'd made, that I'd tried to justify to myself that I could make it work. Some of the business decisions I made about investments that I made in ventures or businesses that I set up, that really, they were never going to work. But I'm motivated. You hear all the gurus say, you can achieve anything, you can make it happen. And we get into this thing of thinking we can force things to happen, but that's not how it works. And so I was as you said, I had this marvelous gift of a lesson to be given, to be shown that that's not how it works. And you need to try a different approach, and you need to try and figure out a different approach, because it ends in disaster when you go against the voice and you try and force things to happen. So for me, it was a culmination of a lot of wrong decisions, and they all, snowballed and came together at the same time, and bang, took it all away.
Yeah, this is such an incredible story and I always think when somebody ends up coming on the show, they come right at the time that, it's just interesting, right at the time that I'm thinking about a certain thing like that. And I've been thinking so much about allowing and surrendering and not pushing, an agenda, so I'm very curious to know like what you discovered. I mean, I'm always talking about how we're automated and all the things you're describing. You're like describing me, and like, all the studying and the learning and believing in growth, because I believe that we're always growing.
Yeah.
And I just love that this is just another leg of your journey of growing. And I just love it, because I think ultimately we're supposed to have more peace,
It's totally. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm thinking in that same way. So I just love that you're here now. So it's just cool. So
it's all good.
Yeah. So tell us about like what your discovery, like, is it about surrender? Is it about?
Well, it is about surrender and letting go. But here's the thing. We've all heard about you have to surrender, you have to let go, but none of us do it. And the reason we don't do it is we don't understand what it actually is, and that it's not just a fanciful, spiritual sort of woo-woo idea. It's a biological law of the way we operate as biological natural beings. And, this is the thing I'd overlooked in my life of trying to force things to happen and trying to use my thinking brain to justify and work things out and make it all happen. I forgot that nature rules everything. There are laws of nature that we are bound by, and it's a bit like the law of gravity. You can say to yourself, you can read every book you like about changing your beliefs, and you can spend years convincing yourself that if you go out off a 10-story building that you're going to be able to fly. So you can work on your thoughts, you can be motivated, you can pray, you can do whatever you like, but at the end of the day, you walk off that 10-story building, the law of gravity is going to take over. So we need to understand that nature, our biological nature, rules everything above everything else that we might think. And when I started to look at this, I thought, one of the first questions I thought, okay, when I started to really put all the dots together, say, well, looking at the laws of nature, what have I missed here? And when I started to study this, I realized that all science, and actually all of religion as well, teaches us that all of life has one primary purpose. Everything is wired every biological living thing is wired primarily for one thing, and that is to survive. We live in this world because, and so we are biologically wired to survive. And what does that mean? What gives us the best chance of survival? It's when we are at our best. So every living organism is biologically wired to strive to be its best so that it has the greatest chance for survival. And for humans, being your best doesn't just mean being your best physically, because obviously when you're your best physically, you have the greatest strength to fight off enemies, or the greatest ability to resist diseases and heal more quickly. But being your best also means mentally and emotionally. In other words, it means to be happy. So your biological purpose is you are designed to be happy. In other words, you're designed to be fulfilled. You're designed to be the best that you can be on every level. You're designed to enjoy your life, and you're designed to have a life without problems, because problems and stress don't help you survive. They don't make you live any longer. Everybody knows that stress kills you. It contributes to physical disease. So it's not biologically a part of your being the best that you can be. So when I thought about this, okay, so here we are, your purpose, biologically, all of nature, and if you look around all of nature, if you really look, you see that it is being the best that it can be. Every living thing is doing what it's supposed to be doing without stress, without struggle. If it needs food, it finds food. If it needs to do something else, it does it. So if we're all designed to be the best that we can be, what has nature provided to allow that to happen? Because there must be some mechanism or system or operating principles that allow us to be the best that we can be. And then I realized it's the brain. The brain is a machine. It's a machine that has been given to every organism with one purpose, and that is to make that organism the best that it can be so that it has the greatest chance for survival. So you as a human, you have a brain that is there whose sole job is to make sure that you survive to the best of your ability for as long as you can. That's what it's constantly trying to do. And it's constantly trying to make your life the best it can be so that you live the longest. In other words, it's actually designed to make you happy. So I thought, well, this is really interesting. And the more I read about the brain, the more I thought, you read a book, somebody writes a book about the brain, and all the books that have been written about the brain, they get to the last page, and on the last page, every author pretty well says the same thing, which is, I've just written this book about the brain, and I can't believe how incredible it is. It's the most mind-blowing, if you forgive the pun, computer system on the planet. It has the computing power of 500 trillion computer microprocessors. So the human brain is far more powerful than anybody could possibly imagine. So with all that power, it's only designed for one thing, and that's to make you the best that you can be, have the best life that you can. So if you had the most amazing computer on the planet that had the power and the purpose and the ability to give you the best life possible, then what would you say next? I want to know how to use it. Wow. Because if I'm not having the best life possible, in other words, if I've got problems and stress and I don't feel like I'm being my best, then I can't be using it the right way. It's not creating the result it's designed to do. So all I need to do is figure out how to use it the right way, because I'm not using it the right way. Sometimes I use the example of a motor car. If we know what a car's for. All it is a machine. It doesn't think or do anything unpredictable. It's very predictable. It's designed to take you from where you are to where you want to go easily, as I say, predictably, enjoyably, without being a struggle for you, if you know how to drive it, if you use it the right way. And if you meet somebody who's standing behind a motor car and they're trying to push it along without the engine on or anything like that, you'd go up to them and say, what are you doing there? Oh, I'm driving my car. And say, well, why are you doing like that? Oh, well, this is the way you drive a car, and you've got to put in a lot of effort. And you'd say, but it's not going very well, is it? Oh, that's because I'm not motivated enough. I need to work harder, and I need to develop more muscles and put in more effort. And you'd say, but look, you're putting in all that effort, but all it's doing is wearing you out and making you stressed, and you're not getting anywhere. How about I show you how the car works, and that it's actually designed not to be a struggle. It's not designed to be difficult. It's supposed to be enjoyable if you know how to do it the right way. And so you'd go, oh, I didn't know this is how you drive a car. And yeah, this is far more enjoyable. I don't have problems. It's working fine, and it's getting me to where I want to go. That's what a machine does. And that's what your brain will do if you know how to drive it the right way. And then I started to look at, so how does this machine work? And all of science and all of religion clearly tells us how the brain works. And virtually nobody is doing it the right way, which is why people have problems and stress. And what I realized, without knowing it, was that somehow my brain had switched and I was starting to use it the right way, in a different way. And that's why I was getting different results. And so that's what I do now, is really share with people. I have a 4-part brain model, which is very simple to understand. It's even more simple than how your car, a manual for your car, but it's a way of understanding. And when you get it, you go, it's so logical, it's so obvious. And then that's when your life starts to work in a much better way.
Hey, guys, how are you? Isn't that amazing? This story that we're hearing on this show is great. I want to just give a shameless plug of my book. I would really want people to have a good look at my book and to understand what it really is. I used to be ashamed to plug my book, and then I realized, how is that right? To keep the information, the 30 years of experience that I have, the 8 years of education, the trauma that I grew out of and learned how to manage, and how to manage emotion, all the training I've had in neuroscience and quantum physics. How can I keep that from the public? So it's not, I used to think it was like something I should, be humble about, but being humble is silly when you're keeping things away from people that they need. So what I want to tell you about my book, and I hope that you do get it, because I think it will really help you. I've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback about my book, and that it's really, really of great value to a lot of people. And what it is, it's an interactive read, and there's inside of it, there's journal entries. So as I'm teaching and going through the book and teaching you how to create the life you want by understanding how you're wired, how your thoughts, feelings, how your words, how thoughts are things, and the neuroscience behind it, and how we are programmed from the time we're 0 to 7 years old to live a life of mediocrity, or a life of poor design because of meaning that we attached to events when we were children that just became our programming. What I want to tell you is that there is a way out, and it's a simple way. It's very simple. I believe in the simplicity and the grace in healing, and that it doesn't have to be a big work. So I would love it if you'd get my book. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it's my first. And I encourage you to get it. It's called The Wake Up Call, an interactive read for building the life you want. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks so much for being on the show, and let's get back to it. So how did you discover what it was? Because I can hear in you, it's interesting, because, I think about like divine or source or whatever, God, and I'm thinking that he knew that you were going to be a student, and you were going to be looking into and figuring it out. And when you lost everything, and then you were like, oh, it's almost like you're a scientist. Like, I'm going to figure this out. And can you tell us what you figured out and how you figured it out? Because you're there and you're observing yourself. Wise observer. What did you see in yourself that was different?
Well, what I realized, you're right, I wanted to figure it out, and to the point where, even with all of the previous things that I'd tried, I wanted to prove if it worked or not. I wasn't just happy with someone telling me, yeah, try this and you might get some little result. It's like, if I didn't get a really good result out of something, firstly, I really tried it. I really tried to understand the method or the process or whatever it was the person was explaining, whether it was some mind technique or, something more practical or whatever. So I wanted to understand it fully, and I wanted to test it fully, and I wanted to see my results fully. I didn't want to just say, oh, yeah, it's made a bit of a difference and oh, that's good. No, did it give me the result? So that's the same approach I took to trying to figure out what I was doing differently with, and when I figured out it must be something to do with my brain, because that's what made biological sense about what causes, the difference between getting good results and not getting and having problems must be to do with this biological machine. So then I started to look into how the brain works, and then started to see, is that what I'm doing? Is that what I have been doing? Is that what I used to do the wrong way? And this is what I'm doing differently now. And I could see there was a scientific mechanism at work there. And the really interesting thing too was a lot of what I discovered when I discovered the scientific mechanism was religion. The Bible in particular teaches all the same stuff, but we haven't really put it all together to realize how it all works. And that's how I created my 4-part brain model, as to how there are essentially 4 parts to your brain, and they all have a different role, and problems occur when you're using the wrong part for the wrong task.
Yes. I'm just excited. I love it. I just have to say, this is my gig. Like, I just love everything that you're saying, because my undergraduate degree forever ago was experimental psychology. So every single thing I did, I would experiment with myself.
Right.
Like, I want the data. And I didn't care if it didn't work. I just loved knowing, like the learning and experimenting, just little, things. And also, so much of what I'm looking at in my life's work is like the marriage of science and spirituality. And when you're talking about the Bible, it's fascinating to me. So I'm just clapping, and I don't want you to stop talking. I don't want to listen to myself. I hear myself all day long. So I want to hear. So are we allowed to know? Is this like a thing? Like, we have to get, I know we have to get your program. I mean, I get it, but like, is there any, like, can you give us like some, like, what were you doing wrong? That was, or I shouldn't say wrong, what was not producing the results that you wanted? Were you using your area where the amygdala is screaming there's trouble? Like, what was happening?
Well, I'll share with you the four-part brain model, because when I do this with people, and I'm sure you'll probably have the same experience, it becomes so obvious, and then you almost see instantly what you're doing wrong and why you haven't been getting the results you get. The 4-part model for the brain that I've created is based on science, and it's very simple to understand, even though it has a lot of, I could use all the technical scientific jargon behind it. But what I realized and what I wanted to create was something that people could understand easily, because success and learning to use your brain the right way and being the best that you can be, it is our natural state. So it's not something that really was the problem for me earlier on, when I kept thinking, I have to go away and study something for 30 years before I can understand how to be really happy and successful. That's not what it's about. Nature, you're supposed to do this naturally. And we've just, through our entire life, been told the wrong things, learned the wrong things, developed different habits, which has made it all really complicated. And it's, as Confucius once said, life's actually really simple, but we've just insisted on making it complicated. So I'll share with you, if you like, the 4-part brain model, and I think it'll make a lot of sense. And again, some of the, all of this is a lot deeper and more technical than what I'm sharing, but this is just the understanding part, if you like. So the 4 parts of your brain, the first part is what I call your rational thinking brain. And it's sometimes called the neocortex. And, this is the top part of your brain. And the function of your rational thinking brain, what it really is, it's a database or a library of all of the information and knowledge that you pick up throughout your life. So everything that comes to you from your environment, through your senses, and also, your thoughts, it gets stored in your rational thinking brain, because then you can retrieve this information. So that you can make sense of the world, you can label things. So when you see something and you say that's a tree, it goes into your brain, that's a tree. So when you see another tree, you can go, that's a tree. And then you can talk to someone else and say, that's a tree. And we can communicate. So it's a library, a warehouse, a database of all of our experience that we personally experience. The second part of the brain, which is just below the rational thinking brain, inside our head, because remember, these are physical locations. This isn't like the idea of the subconscious mind and all of those things, which are more conceptual. These are physical places, separate locations in the brain. So the part just below, the second part, is what I call your emotional feeling brain. And you mentioned the amygdala. This is at the core of it. It's also the hippocampus and the hypothalamus. This is the part that is responsible for your feelings, for how you feel. And, that's pretty obvious as well, I guess. The third part of your brain is at the back of your head, and it's what I call your survival brain. So this is in the brain stem and around that area. And this manages everything to do with your moment-by-moment survival, anything that you don't have to think about. So, for instance, all of your physical bodily functions, your breathing, your heart rate, your organs, everything else, it all gets managed by this part of your brain. And there's another really, and why I call it the survival brain is because these are all the things you need for moment-by-moment survival. Nothing to do with your thinking, your thoughts, it's your automatic survival. And there's one other really important part of your automatic survival, and that is, of course, if you're presented with a threat or a danger to your survival, and your survival brain has another weapon or tool to protect you from those unexpected dangers, and that's what's commonly called the fight or flight mechanism. And we're all familiar with this. So in ancient times, when we were filled with dangers and threats and lions behind every rock, if the lion came running towards you, your survival brain activated this fight-flight mechanism and you reacted. So you ran away, or you fought off the lion, or you shouted out for help, or whatever it was. But this is a reaction. We know what this is. Well, I'm sure we're familiar with this. It's just a non-thinking automatic reaction to deal with a threat. So these days, if someone came to hit you, you'd automatically put your hand up without thinking. So that's all of the survival brain. Now, the fourth part of your brain is another part that very few people have really talked about much. And even in religion, they do talk about this, but they talk about it in almost mystical, hidden terms, if you like. But it's the part of your brain that's designed to drive your life. And it's what I call your creative brain. And this is centered around your pineal gland, your pituitary gland, and a couple of other places as well. Now, your creative brain, is that what I said? It is your creative brain. Your creative brain, this is the part of your brain that is in operation when you are being the best that you can be. And science has a word for this. It's called homeostasis, which means the perfect functioning of the organism. So when you are in homeostasis, when your whole organism is functioning perfectly, and nature does this naturally, by the way, when you're functioning perfectly, your creative brain is activated. And what happens in your creative brain? This is where you get your creativity from. It's where you get, it contains all your intuition. It's where you get those gut feelings of like, oh, I'm making a mistake here, or I shouldn't do this, or I should do this. Yes, I know I can feel this is the right thing to do, or I can feel this is the wrong thing to do. This is actually the problem-solving part of your brain. And it's where you get these new ideas and you suddenly go, oh, I suddenly see the right thing to do in that situation. Why didn't I ever think of it before? It's where new ideas come from, and many people from many creative and high performance people talk about being in the flow, being in the zone, being in this place where they're not thinking, they're not struggling, they're not work, but somehow things are happening. Athletes talk about it's almost like an effortless state where they're just doing brilliantly at their sport. Composers, musicians say things like, I just heard the music and I wrote it down. I don't know where it came from. This is the creative brain at work. And this is the part that you're supposed to be using, as I said, when you are being the best that you can be. And we've all had this experience where you're in the flow, things are happening, good things are happening, you're making the right decisions, the right people are coming into your life. You're seeing new opportunities that you never saw before. You're seeing things about the world that you never saw before. And things are going really well. And you're thinking, I'm really in the flow here. I'm really in the zone. Now, this is our natural creative state. This is the way we're supposed to live biologically all the time, except for one time. So if we can accept being the best that we can be as being in this creative, by creative, I don't just mean, you can write concertos and symphonies and things. It means you are being the best at what you do. You are feeling fulfilled. You know that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing in every moment. But there's only one time you're not supposed to be using that part of your brain. And that's when a lion suddenly comes out at you from behind a tree. In other words, a threat or a danger shows up in your life. And what happens then is how this actually works. We haven't probably got time to go into all of the technical details, but what your emotional brain is actually doing on a biological level, in every second, it's like a sentry scanning your environment and making a decision. Is it safe or is there a danger? And if it's safe, it sends a chemical signal through your body to make you feel good, which activates your creative brain. So when you're feeling loving, grateful, and really good, your creative brain is working, and you do the right things, as it were, and the right things happen in your life. But if on the odd occasion your emotional brain scanning says, I recognize a danger, it sends a different set of chemicals and it activates your fight or flight and your survival brain, and it gets you to react. But what we don't realize is that when your survival brain, when this fight or flight mechanism is activated, it shuts down the creative brain. Because for a couple of reasons. One is you don't need awareness, creativity, imagination, appreciation, gratitude for everything that is. When a lion's about to eat you, that you're going to be dead if you're looking at the trees and appreciating and going, oh, isn't this lovely? Or if you're thinking, well, maybe there's a strategy I can come up with dealing with this lion. So your creative brain literally gets shut down. And the other reason it gets shut down is because the energy that part of your creative brain is using is diverted to be used to fight off the threat or the danger. So here's the magic. Here's the secret. Your emotional brain activates either your creative brain to make you the best that you can be, solving all the problems, setting the right goals, not going after the wrong things, meeting the right people, doing the right things, saying the right things. It's either activating that or it's activating this reactive response through your feelings. And when you feel good, it's activating your creative brain. And when you're feeling bad, when you're feeling fear, that is a sign that you are using your survival brain. And what are most people doing? What they're doing is they're feeling stressed, frustrated, afraid, worried, anxious, and they're trying to run their life from that place. So they're trying to set goals. They're going, oh, I'm so unhappy. What do I need to do? I need some more information. How can I get out of this horrible situation? How can I solve my problems? And I'm so afraid, or whatever it is. And they're using a part of their brain that cannot help them to get out of any of that. All of the solutions, all of the right ideas are in their creative brain, and they've shut that down. And they're trying to figure it out using this reactive, very, very limited part of their brain. And that's why we make the wrong decisions. We do the wrong things. We react. We can't see the big picture of what we should be doing. And essentially, if you want to have success in your life, if you want to be the best you can be, you need to find a way to shut down this survival instinct or the survival part, except when the lion is about to eat you, which probably might be once in your lifetime, if that, yeah. And learn how to use this other part of your brain instead and live your life using that part. And that's where the letting go and allowing comes in, because that part can't operate from fear and stress and worry and anxiety. If you need to find a way, and this is what I teach, and probably I'm sure you teach as well, how to really let go, which you can only do when you deal with all of these irrational fears that you've got rocking around in your brain that you've had since, for years, about what all these, you've literally tricked your brain into thinking it's a far more dangerous place than it actually is. Where everyone's running around thinking there's lions everywhere, but it's all in our imagination. It's all in our brain. We've tricked our brain through using it the wrong way all our life. So what we've got to learn to do is to get back into using our creative brain, letting go of the fear. And, I thought this is really interesting. Where have I heard this before about not being afraid, about fear? I thought the Bible. The Bible says 365 times, one for every day of the year, be not afraid. And it's not saying it as like don't be so worried, it's an instruction. This is an instruction manual on how to use your brain, because what it's saying is when you are afraid, you are shutting down the part of your brain that you've been given to make you the best that you can be. That's where all your resources are, but you can't activate it when you're afraid. So be not afraid.
Yes.
So this is what we need to realize is fear is the enemy. That's the only problem we have in our life, is causing our brain to keep tripping into this fear state, this anxious, worried, worried about the future. What's going to happen? I don't know what to do. You don't need to know what to do. Your creative brain knows what to do. It'll bring you everything you need. You don't need to figure it out. You don't need to read another book. You don't need to try and force anything to happen. You've got a 500 trillion computer microprocessor computer there whose sole job is to make sure you do the right things, make sure the right things happen in your life. You don't need to struggle and figure it out. So that's what I discovered. And when I lost everything, of course, I had to let go, because when I asked those questions, why has this happened to me? I don't know. What do I do now? I don't know. I give up. I don't know the answers. I'm going to give up struggling, and I've had it. I wasn't quite suicidal, but I was like, everything I've tried hasn't worked. I give up. It's all a load of old baloney. I'm just going to see what shows up. And I wasn't afraid of it. And then good things started to show up. And funnily enough.
Isn't it incredible how you can, be on the top of the world? You have all these things and all the stressors that come with it. And then when they're gone, maybe the thing that you or whoever would be afraid of most, losing everything. That's like the biggest fear. I always tell people, just walk up to the edge of the cliff and look over. Like, okay, so you lose it. Like, your biggest fear, it's okay. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Alison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe if you could to YouTube, Alison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.